shows me more about some of the people in this fan base that are just kind of toxic, and no matter what happens, y'all are gonna complain anyways. The Phoenix Suns, huge win tonight against the Los Angeles Lakers. We didn't have Dylan Brooks, we didn't have Devin Booker. We're a very, 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 very injury-riddled team right now. We had Jalen Green on the floor. We had Grayson Allen on the floor. We had Colin Gillespie on the floor. We had Oso on the floor. We had Mark Williams on the floor. We had Fleming on the floor. Amir Coffey was on the floor. We still had some dogs on the floor. And if you know anything about this Phoenix Suns team, that's the DNA. That's who they are. That's who we are as a team and as a franchise right now. We're a hard-nosed, gritty, fighting team. But one thing that I just want to come out here and talk about is Jalen Green. I'm on Twitter and I see guys complaining and at Jalen Green's neck every single game. People are complaining about Jalen Green. Why are we spending money on Jalen Green? Jalen Green's a bum. He's worthless out there. He's just a shot chucker, which I can agree with, right? He likes to get his buckets up. And people just really questioning the fit of Jalen Green on this Phoenix Suns team. And the whole purpose of this video for me is to relax. Everybody needs to relax when it comes to Jalen Green. And here's why. Yes, his first 4 seasons in Houston, the shot chucker label, inefficient, bad decision making, all of this stuff for sure. But let's put his time in Houston into perspective. When Jalen Green was in Houston, he got drafted post James Harden, the year after James Harden left. He's the guy. Like, he's their lottery pick. He's the person who's supposed to take them to the next level. Then they get guys like Şengün. Then they get guys like Jabari Smith. You know, they even had Kevin Porter in there for a little bit before he went through his little scandal. What else did you expect of Jalen Green when he was in Houston is my question, right? Young, inexperienced player on a young and inexperienced team. What do you expect him to do? There's very few NBA players, you know, the Cooper Flags, the LeBron James, you know, the Luka Doncic's, and like guys like that who can just come in right away, carry a franchise, and really take them to that next level right away, to where you're like, wow, this guy's coming in league ready right away. And those guys are really, 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 really special. Is Jalen Green a Luka Doncic? Is he a LeBron James? Is he that kind of guy who's coming straight? He didn't even go to college. He played in that like development. I don't even remember the name of that league, but he didn't even play in college. Is he that guy? No, he's not a LeBron James. He's not a Luka Doncic. He's not a Cooper Flag. He's not that. But he's a very, very, very talented player. So when we look at his time in Houston, his first 2 years especially, they were awful. They were god-awful. They're in full rebuild mode. What do you expect out of him? There's going to be growth. There's going to be games you're like, wow, this guy's insane. There's going to be games you're like, wow, there's a lot of room for growth. He didn't have a point guard, and he's really expected just to kind of carry the team in this rebuild situation. So there are going to be peaks and valleys with him, right? And that's what we saw. His next 2 years when they bring in a Fred VanVleet, they still struggled that first year, but he's learning under Fred VanVleet. His efficiency went up, right? He learned how to be a better basketball player overall because he got to play with an NBA champion in Fred VanVleet. And then the next year, which was last year, 2024, 2025, they're like the number 2 team in the West. And partially because of him, and a lot of it has to do with Şengün and Jabari Smith and Thompson and all those guys that they've brought in and drafted and really built this core around, along with the Fred VanVleet really running the ship and making sure everyone's getting good shots, getting to their spots, really organizing the whole floor, right? So last year was really the first time Jalen Green ever got to play in a competitive situation in his whole time in the NBA. Last year was that year, right? But then he gets traded to Phoenix, okay? He gets traded to Phoenix, and we have barely seen him this year. Tonight, I believe, was his 10th game. Technically, I think his 11th, but that one game he played like a quarter, and he got hurt again. He re-injured the hamstring. So I'm not even really counting that game. And he's barely even played with Devin Booker. But anyways, he has been hurt this year. Okay, we're in February and we're in February and we're talking about dude playing his 10th and 11th game on a team that's been rolling but really needs him to kind of step up, which there is an expectation there. But at the same time, how do you expect a guy in the middle of a season to join a team and just plug in right away, give you 25 points a game? He just got off minutes restriction, and when you have a hamstring injury, it's not like he's in the lab working on his game still. A lot of it's rest. A lot of it's rehab. A lot of it's that. Conditioning goes into the dumps. All those kinds of things. He can't go full speed for weeks because of the hamstring. And it shows some of you guys just don't understand how this stuff really works out, in my opinion. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but some of you guys are crazy when it comes to Jalen Green in this whole situation, especially Suns fans. And it's a little disappointing. And that's just my opinion. A lot of you guys are going to disagree with me, but a lot of you guys are just complainers, in my opinion. But anyways, we're going to move on amicably. So he gets back, right? We've barely seen him really play a full game with Devin Booker where he's playing 32, 33, 34 minutes a game. We've barely seen him with Dylan Brooks. We've barely seen our true starting five get run together. But people are complaining oh, we're wasting money on him. He's a bum. He's a shot chucker. Yeah, for sure. Like I said earlier, he gets it up. But at the same time, you got to let this cat get a rhythm here. We got to give him a little break. We can't have such high expectations right out the gate, because there's a couple points I want to make here. And the first point is, how do you expect him to come in here and just fit right in mid-season? Everybody, not even just on the Suns team, everybody in the whole league is in mid-season form. We are almost at the end of the NBA season. Everyone's in mid-season form. Everyone's played 50 games so far, almost 60 games so far, right? And we're talking game 10, and more than half of those games he's been on minutes restriction. Okay, so he comes in, he's trying to figure out, okay, how can I gel with this team and how can I fit in with this team that's been successful without me? Right? I don't want to do too much. I don't want to do too little, right? I got to play make. I got to play defense. I got to do things like that. I got to hit my shots. But there's a thing called getting your legs under you, right? When you play a sport, right? When I played, the beginning of the season, and I wasn't an NBA player by any means, but I played in college, right? But beginning of the season, people aren't where they're going to be 20 games down the road. Even mid-season, some guys and we play about 30 games in college. Some guys still are figuring it out. Coaches are still figuring out rotations, which lineups work best. But for him, he's coming in the middle of all that right now, 50 games in, 60 games in, somewhere in the middle of that, and trying to figure out where to plug in, how to plug in, and how to go about this the right way. I just think a lot of people have an unrealistic expectation of what he's supposed to do. Okay? For one, right, we talked about his history in Houston. Last year was his first year ever competing for anything and having an expectation, to win playoff series, to have those big moments, right? And then here he comes in the Phoenix, where we kind of didn't really have the highest expectations for this year because we knew we were kind of in a little rebuild. But at the same time, we want to be competitive, and that's exactly where we're at. But people are willing to dump him to the side right now because he's had a tough stretch. I'm not going to lie. He's had a tough stretch, right? Tonight, I don't even know if he scored double-digit points. He had multiple turnovers in the defense. He's still figuring it out defensively, but those are all things that just come in time, just playing with the team, not just practice, but getting game reps with the team. But also when he was hurt, he's not even fully practicing with the team. He's probably getting shots on the side, stretching, doing his rehab stuff, man. Doing skill workouts when he can, depending on how his hamstring was responding. So he even missed out on practices where he can build that chemistry and work with them. Obviously, he got some of that in the offseason. I think he came in with this hamstring injury. But anyways, all of that's kind of out the window. The offseason's a long, long time ago. We're talking, September, October, November, December, January, February. We're talking 6 months ago he was getting those reps. But ever since, he's really been hurt. The last month-ish, right? That's when he's really came back and he's getting his getting his minutes on the court, but with minutes restrictions. And then the last like 3-4 games, I would say he's really came off that minutes restriction. People just don't have a realistic expectation of where he should be, and they're just so quick to dump him to the side. With the hamstring injury, he missed basically the first half of the season. And we haven't seen, Booker, Brooks, Green, Mark Williams, who would be the other guy? Oso, Colin Gillespie, Grayson Allen, whoever would plug into that fifth spot. We just haven't seen a consistent starting lineup, especially with Jalen Green in the lineup. So it's like, what do you expect from him right now? He's had a couple bum games, but he's had a couple games where we're like, wow, shit, he's hit a game winner for the squad. You know what I mean? But we got to give the cat time, and we got to see what that dynamic with Devin Booker does, because the whole thing for me coming into this is like, wow, this is a great situation for Book. This is a great situation for Jalen Green. Jalen Green's never had a primary scoring wing on his team who can take the offensive pressure off of him. In Houston, he was always the primary scorer on the wing. Yeah, they had Fred VanVleet, but Fred VanVleet's more of like, I'm going to get guys with their spots. I'm going to score when I need to, right? But he had Şengün. He had a man, but a man's like a slasher, back cuts, ISO, create at the rim. He's never had a Devin Booker, a guy who demands a double team, the guy who attracts so much attention on the offensive end. Devin Booker's had that with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Chris Paul, like other guys like that. But so that means Devin Booker knows how to work with a guy like Jalen Green and take the pressure off. So if they're doubling Book, guess who's probably open? Maybe Jalen Green. Or when Jalen Green's getting hot, guess who takes pressure off of Devin Booker? Jalen Green. But we haven't even seen what that looks like yet. But people are so quick to just freak out, call him a bum, saying we're wasting money on this guy. Yes, the Suns need a power forward. I get that, right? But is that at the expense of Jalen Green? I don't know yet. I think it's way too early to even think about that right now, right? We got to think about closing this season strong and seeing how Jalen Green ends up, and then seeing how it goes next year too. Like, this isn't a situation where we got to get Jalen Green out of town. This is like Bradley Beal all over again. Bradley Beal is a different situation, but it's like all that hate that was with Bradley Beal from the Suns fans, which partially warranted at times. And I like Bradley Beal's game. I'm not saying I don't. But it just shifted to Jalen Green. And I think he's just the easy scapegoat here because we've barely seen him. He's been hurt, and he hasn't played his best since he's got in. But as Suns fans, it's like, look, dude, we're not beating the Spurs. We're not beating the Thunder in the playoffs. And I hate saying that, like I don't have hope. But let's be realistic about it. We're not that team. We're going to give teams like that a good series. Right? We're going to make things competitive. Shoot, if we get the upset, we get the upset, but that'll be one of the greatest playoff upsets that we've seen since probably the Golden State Warriors when they took out the Mavs. Was it the Mavs? No, they took out the Jazz, right? Or was it the Mavs? I don't know. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. The We Believe Warriors. Like, it'd be a situation like that. Like, when we're not supposed to win the series, but we do, it'd be a great thing. But at the same time, who knows? We're not there yet. We're getting everything that I think as a Suns fan we want right now. We're building the culture. We're competitive. We're beating good teams. We just beat the Lakers tonight, right? The Lakers had Reeves, LeBron, Ayton, Luka. They had their squad. They missing a couple guys, right? But and we didn't have Brooks, Highsmith, D Book. We didn't have some guys, and we still won. And Jalen Green played bad. But like, can we just take a step back here and just relax on Jalen Green? We got to see what it looks like. We got to see what it looks like with Devin Booker and even a Dylan Brooks on the floor. And when you put that solid starting five out there, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Mark Williams, Devin Booker, who would it be? Oso, I would argue probably start Colin. You got Colin, Jalen Green, Devin Booker, Dylan Brooks, Mark Williams. Maybe Colin comes off the bench and we slide a Oso or Ryan Dunn in there. And Ryan Dunn hasn't been playing his best ball either. But it is what it is. We got to roll with the punches right now. We're still winning games and we're still in the playoff picture. I think that's something to be proud about. But this Jalen Green slander needs to absolutely stop, because we can't sit here and say, I mean, I can't at least, that this is the Jalen Green that's going to be Jalen Green forever. I can't sit here and say he can't be a more efficient scorer when Devin Booker comes back. I can't sit here and say he can't be a better defender, especially coming off a hamstring, right? He's still got to be in condition. He's still working on his game conditioning. He's still working on all those things. All that stuff plays a part into where he's at right now, right? And I think a lot of people are forgetting that. And I think right now we just need to relax. We have a really good team and something that we can build something special off going forward. But I don't think Jalen Green is the problem. I think injuries are a problem. They've been a big problem all year, and it's been a problem for him, and I'm not ignoring that fact. But Dylan Brooks breaking his hand, Devin Booker not really being super available the last month and a half, it's just been tough. And I understand the frustration from Suns fans, but at the same time, as a fan base, why are we so quick to point the finger at somebody and just complain? Like, we have a really talented guy in Jalen Green, and I think he can really, really help us, help Devin Booker, and he has a high ceiling. He's 24 years old. It's not like he's 33. It'd be a different conversation then. There's a lot ahead of him, and there's a lot ahead for this Suns team. But right now, we just got to be realistic about it, and we need to just relax. I just wanted to pop on here and share my thoughts on it because I'm just tired of seeing it. A lot of y'all aren't going to agree with me, and that's fine. But at the same time, I respectfully disagree. And it shows me more about some of the people in this fan base that are just kind of toxic. And no matter what happens, y'all are going to complain anyways. But anyways, Skywalk with Wets podcast. Love y'all. Please like and subscribe. Shoot, let me know what you think in the comments, whether you agree or disagree. But at the same time, if you don't do any of those things, you're going to find me anyway. Love y'all. Peace.